Wild and Free Art. Today I'm going to take you through the process that I did to convert this old hardcover book into a new glue book for my own personal use. So first off, I found this book for free in the local library. They have a section where you can just take books for free that they're old and falling apart. So I loved the cover of this book. I loved the design and I loved the end papers. But the spine wasn't doing so well. So I decided I was going to use it to turn it into a book for me. So the first thing I did was very, very carefully I removed the text block, doing my best to keep the end papers intact. This took me a little bit of time, and but I managed to do it because I really wanted to keep those end papers. Then I cut off the spine, and now you can just see me trimming the edge and getting rid of the last little bits that are sticking out here. So after I have trimmed all the excess bits and everything, it's time to start making a new spine. So I just took a piece of regular A4 paper to mark the measurement that I will need for the signatures. And here I have a piece of chipboard that I have measured and marked for the height of the book, and then I've decided to make a 2-inch spine, which seems to be my go-to whenever I have to make something that I'm gluing stuff into. So I'm just trimming off the chipboard, the excess, checking the height and the distance. Everything is doing good. So here I have trimmed the bottom. So the next step is to lay it out and to be very careful, because I am trying to keep those end papers intact. So I'm just giving it a sand here because it was a bit rough and I didn't want any other bits to be sticking out. So because those end papers are quite weak, I did decide to reinforce them with some tape here. I'm using framer's tape, and I just added it to the back part of the end papers, and I'm just folding it over the edge, not too much because I don't want it to be seen on my book cover. And again, I'm repeating the same process on the other cover just to reinforce those end papers, especially there. As you'll see when we do the flip through, I did accidentally snip some of the back of the end papers, but thankfully because of the tape, they have managed to not completely rip off. So as a spine cover, I decided to use this faux leather material, and here I am just cutting it with my roller, and I do apologize for all the noise. I have the kids here with me. Anyway, so I want it to be the width of the spine plus, of course, a couple extra inches because I want it to wrap around the front and the back of my book. Here I have a stick that I found, and I have no idea where it came from. I really can't remember. Oh, I guess I do know now. It was from cotton candy, believe it or not. And it's just the right width for so many of my gaps in the spine, so I use that to mark it. Now here you see me marking the edges of my spine so that I know where to trim and cut and straighten I still managed to glue it on crooked, as you'll see through the flip through, but this book is for me, so it's fine. I don't mind the wonky. It just means it's more handmade, right? So now I've sorted the spine, more or less. It's time to start gluing it. So here I'm just using a PVA glue and water mixture for this. And I'm just using the paintbrush to apply it here on the edge. And I'm going to attach it to my front cover. And I'm using the stick to make sure I was straight, but even then I still managed to screw it up, as you'll see later on. But it's okay. I was happy. The front cover doesn't look so bad. And here I'm just checking the width and the height, and I'm using that to press it and make sure it's down straight. I put it under a bit of weight and then I let it dry. So now that it's dried, it's time to do the next part. The PVA glue mixture did not work, so I've come in with 3-in-1 beacon. So you're going to want to use some sort of 3-in-1 glue. The back of this fake leather is kind of flocked, and I guess my usual PVA didn't have the right strength to hold it and permeate the fabric part on the back. So again, I'm repeating the process, pressing it in really well, and then I am moving on to adding the spine and the other cover. So again, everything is 3-in-1 or Fabri-Tac or whatever you have that's equivalent near you. So again, I'm using my little cotton candy stick as a spacer, and I'm putting down my spine. And here you can see where I went crooked. You can see it in the fabric right there. But what can you do? So again, I'm going on anyway, not really caring. And I am just gluing down that last piece of fabric beyond my stick, and I'm going to put on the next cover. So I'm flipping it over, making sure it's well adhered on both sides. As you see, there's an air bubble there that I needed to kind of push out a little bit and just go into those creases on the edge, giving it a bit of a fold to make sure that it doesn't get too hard, and again, pressing it under some weight to dry. So while my cover was drying, I started working on the signatures. I selected the papers that I wanted to use, and I cut them to size, prepared them into signatures, and decided to sew them all together. I decided to do I think I went for a Coptic stitch, possibly a French link binding here in the back for it, and I do have tutorials for the French link. If you are interested, I will link it below. But here I was just making sure to bind the text block, and I used a curved needle because for this client it just makes life a lot easier. So Once I finished sewing the text block all together, I tied it all off, put it in my book press, and began to add a layer of glue. So yes, I do a French link on this one, I can see it. So I just added a couple layers of glue, and I've gone in between all the cracks and made sure that I have covered the string completely and let it dry. After adding a couple more coats and leaving it to dry overnight, it's time to bind in my text block. So here is the actual text block all ready to go, and now I'm going to very carefully attach it to my end papers. Because I don't want to ruin the end papers too much, I have decided to just glue along the edge of my front page and carefully attach it to my end papers. You can see I've also added some book corners on the cover in the meantime. I've also used some blot sheets to protect the text block from the glue. And here, once I'm finished, I am just going to leave it and press it overnight to finish. And here it is, the finished product. This is actually quite a while later that I did the filming for this, because I realized I never actually filmed the finished flip through. So here you can see the rip there that I actually ended up making. And I've started to fill this book up. I've turned it into a glue book, so to speak, which basically is another word for me to say things that I got that I wanted to use for junk journaling but couldn't bring myself to give up. And so I've kind of just like glued them all together and keeping them in a glue book. So you'll see like postcards that I collected but I found really nice. These are just receipts that come from my hometown, and they kind of have a nostalgic feel for me, so I didn't want to give them to anyone else. I've also put in like papers, envelopes, maps, some bits from magazines that I've really liked. That's from a notebook that I kind of used as a kid. This was a really beautiful illustration that was in a magazine here in Italy. You know, I used a bunch of just random bits, and I'm slowly gluing and putting pieces in this book as I come across them. And that way I have a little bit of a collection of things that are kind of cool, but I couldn't quite bring myself to use them, like this piece of paper from a secondhand notebook that I got, that on the other side it's all written in half Chinese characters and stuff like that. This was a beautiful illustration from, I think it was from something that the children received. That's a beautiful quote that I found in a magazine again, and images that come from magazines, some pressed flowers. Yeah, so I'm just kind of slowly filling it up, and once it is done, I will do a proper flip through just to show you what can be done with the glue book. So I hope you've enjoyed this kind of walkthrough tutorial process video on how to convert an already, a hardcover book into another journal that you make for yourself. And let me know what you think in the comments below, and please remember to like and subscribe and hit the little bell so that you don't miss any of the latest notifications. And if you're happy to, I also have a Facebook group called Create Wildly, and I would be happy to have you join in as it gets growing a little bit. I intend to do some community projects and some challenges and swaps. So the more the merrier in this case. It's open to anyone from anywhere in the world. Thank you so much for watching, and happy crafting.